Hi guys, you'll remember from my last video then that we were looking at this example question, which was discuss ways in which Dickinson presents death in I Felt a Funeral in My Brain. And you'll recall that we looked at how to plan then an answer, okay, using the 3 topic sentences. Now what I'd like to look at in today's video is how to turn the first topic sentence included in my plan, which, just to remind you, was as follows: Dickinson presents death as physically paralysing, okay, and we selected this quote yesterday from the poem in the last video, kept treading till it seemed that sense was breaking through. So what I'm going to do today, or what I'm going to show you, is how to write a detailed analytical paragraph, okay, based on these notes that we've made in our planning sheet. So let's go over to our script. So imagine that we're in the exam and we're all good to go because we've done our detailed plan and we've got our topic sentence to run with. So start off with, obviously we will have written our introduction already, and then our first paragraph to look at the theme of death would be as follows. So topic sentence be: Dickinson presents death as physically paralysing. So if you remember, we talked about the different sort of elements and aspects of death, and here the quotation that we're going to look at, I'm just going to change colour just to distinguish between the different parts of the paragraph. The quotation that we selected from the poem was, for example, when it says, and it was the quote, kept treading, and then we've got the repetition of the treading, okay, for that emphasis there, and then she goes on to say, till it seemed, and then I'm going to use slanting line there just to show that it's a new line in the poem when she then goes on to say that sense was breaking through. Okay? So far, very simple. We've got our topic sentence here, call that TS, and then we've got our quotation from the poem. Okay? So now I'm going to change colour to green, and that will be our analysis, okay? So if we go back to our plan, we'll remember that our thesis statement, so the tip of our triangle in our introduction, was that we said we were going to discuss how Dickinson presents suffering related to death. Okay, that was part of our thesis. So it is the suffering that we're looking at in this quotation. And the first thing that I'd like to look at, because obviously we need to be looking at language in detail, so I'm going to decide to hone in on this repetition of the verb treading here, okay? So I'm going to go on and say exactly that. So the repetition of the verb treading. And then I need to think about how the repetition of that verb is related to death in any way. And I'm going to say that it gives the impression that death is unavoidable. Okay? And nothing that we can do can ever actually prevent it. Okay? And that, I feel, explains the effect then of Dickinson's language technique of the repetition there. Okay, that's my own personal interpretation. And you'll see also that I'm keeping very in line with the question, which was obviously asking us to comment on death. Okay? Now I'm going to go on with my analysis. I'm going to remember that I need to compare with other Dickinson poems in the collection. Okay, so if you remember from my plan, just go back to my plan, you can see that that's indicated by the letter C here, I've already indicated that I'm going to make some comparisons with the poem After a Great Pain. Okay, so let's see how it goes with that. So I'm going to talk about actually a similarity with After a Great Pain. I want to talk about the idea and the use of the quote of the feet going round mechanically, and that idea that as you approach death, your mind and body sort of become disconnected there. So I'm going to use the phrase that this echoes. Okay, so it's quite a nice way of showing that it happens in both poems. This echoes the idea presented in quotations, because it's the title of the poem, After a Great Pain, formal feeling comes. Okay, and then I want to, where possible, you need to be able to use specific quotes from the other poems in the collection. This is why it's so important to be memorising them and learning them off by heart now, so you can do that with confidence. So this is where the narrator describes how the feet, mechanical, go round. So you see here I've actually used a quote from a different Dickinson poem, and I want to really focus on the word mechanical there. So I'm going to say that actually going to make, and this is a way to make a very confident comparison between two poems. I'm going to actually make a link between a specific word from one poem, so that's mechanical, with the word treading, so going back to treading. What I'm going to say then is that the use of the word mechanical, okay, so I'm quoting a specific part of the quotation that really creates a very nice, close, detailed language analysis. So the use of the word mechanical, similar then, making that comparison to treading, suggests, and if I remind myself, if I go back to my topic sentence, what I want to talk about is that death has this physically paralysing effect, okay, on a person. So I'm going to say that these words suggest sort of shutting down of the body's physical functions. Okay. And I'd also like to comment on how the word treading sort of creates a feeling of caution as well, okay, and how that may indicate some sense of fear in the face of death. Okay, so I'm going to just finish up by saying, just expand my analysis even more and say, at the same time, the word treading, and say connotes a feeling of caution. And of course I need to link that back to death, okay, remembering that that's the focus of my topic sentence, focus of the question. So feeling of caution, let's say, in the face of death. And then just to link it back then, in this way, Dickinson presents death as, just about to fit on the screen, overwhelming in suffering. Okay? Okay, so let's have a look, run from the top. We've got our topic sentence there that we lifted from our planning sheet, so we were good to go with that. So Dickinson presents death as physically paralysing. Then we've got a quotation that we'd already extracted from the poem as part of our planning. So for example, when it says, kept treading, treading till it seemed that sense was breaking through. Okay, make sure that you you keep your quotes nice and tight and short and focused. They don't need to be too long, okay? Sometimes the shorter they are, the closer and more detailed analysis that you can provide. We then obviously go on to the analytical explanation here, which is in green. So it said that the repetition of the verb treading gives the impression that death is unavoidable. So making sure that we lift out that theme again, making sure that we keep it connected to our topic sentence there. Death is unavoidable. Nothing we can do can ever prevent it. And then here then we started to make the comparison, okay, which is really important to make that comparison between the poem that features in the question and then other Dickinson poems in the collection. So this echoes the idea presented in After a Great Pain, a Formal Feeling Comes, where the narrator describes how the feet mechanical go round. So we've got a nice confident comparison with a specific and accurate quote, okay, from a different poem, and then comparison is developed even further when we say the use of the word mechanical, so coming from one poem, similar to the word treading coming from the other poem, so very, very specific comparisons made, suggests a shutting down of the body's physical functions. And then, it's not over yet, because you can get a lot out of one quotation, okay, and even just out of one word. What else could treading suggest? Well, the fact that she's repeating it could connote a feeling of caution in the face of death, always linking back to the topic sentence, okay? And in this way, Dickinson presents death as overwhelming in suffering, okay? So, now we've had a look at how to plan, how to use our topic sentence, and how to then form this into an analytical paragraph. Have a go yourself, have a go at planning an answer, choose a poem that will feature in your question, and have a go at expanding your analysis. Okay, best of luck then. Thank you.